All right, thanks, Ross. He's hoping to pull off an enormous upset, defeat the sitting majority leader of the United States House of Representatives. Wayne Powell believes he can make that happen. Powell is an attorney, small businessman, and a retired Army colonel. He joins me now live on First at 4 to talk about his campaign. Thank you for being here, Mr. Powell. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Ryan.
Let's first talk about that monumental challenge that you have.
Sure.
Taking on somebody like Eric Cantor. He has more than $6 million in the bank. He's been elected to this seat in the House of Representatives for many years. Is it possible for you to win? And if so, how can you do it?
Well, it's not only possible, I think I will win, and it comes down to economic fairness and social justice. And there's only so much money can do. When you know you're doing the right thing for the right reasons. I'm doing this for the people of the 7th District who haven't had a representative for 12 years. And so I think my power comes from the people, where it should come from.
Now, let me ask you specifically about one of your most consistent criticisms of Congressman Cantor, and that is that you appear to insinuate that he has somewhat of undue influence by the folks that support his campaign. And as we mentioned, he's raised about $6 million, but you've raised a pretty good amount of money to your campaign as well, almost $1 million. If donations equal influence, how is it going to be any different for you when you get into Congress? Aren't the folks that are donating to your campaign, couldn't we make the same assumption?
Well, one major difference, my donations are $5, $25, and as I've said before, his donations come from way outside the district. We're talking about $2.5 million from big banks and hedge funds. We're talking about $2 million from big petroleum or big pharma, and from let's see what else, the insurance companies. These people are paying their money for a reason, so that he votes a certain way. My money comes from the people. It's all reported. It's all in the FEC. I don't have any staffers that are in charge of a super PAC. I mean, the influence of money and people buying votes in this Congress must end, and this is where it needs to start to end, right here in the 7th District.
But you've raised a fair amount of money outside of Virginia as well, haven't you?
Small people. These are people who want a representative to represent them, meaning human being people, not corporations. Corporations are not people, and that's one of the first things I would do in Congress is initiate legislation to make sure there's transparency for all this money coming into elections, such as this election, such as what Eric Cantor's amassed over the last 12 years. I mean, while our economy has been in the tank in 2008, he's more than doubled his own income. Where does that come from? Well, I think people need to know where that comes from. For example, I offered 5 years of my taxes. He won't offer anything to explain where his wealth has come from. Mine's an open book. Why won't he disclose why and where his money came from?
Let's talk more about you.
Sure.
You're running in a district that is predominantly Republican. You've had some ads that show you as somebody that can reach out to Republicans, but you are a pretty faithful Democrat. Give me one or two examples of how you see the world differently than maybe President Obama and the leaders in Congress.
Well, I'm a faithful American first and foremost, and I know that there's a lot of talk about this incredible debt. I believe we have to pay down the debt. Now, a lot of Democrats don't agree with that. I think the first thing we have to do is pay down the debt, but I think we also have to share the burden in this country. That's something that, first of all, Mr. Cantor doesn't agree with, since he's borrowed and spent about $5 trillion in the first 8 years of him being in office. 2 unfunded wars he voted for, unfunded Medicare Part D, which he voted for, a tax cut in the middle of 2 wars. That's totally fiscally irresponsible. I will not vote for deficit spending, which I think a lot of Democrats would, and I think we need to protect our veterans and protect our military and make sure they don't go in any wars they shouldn't go into.
All right. Wayne Powell, thank you for joining us. And
great to be here.
We'll hear from Congressman Cantor tomorrow, and we'll be right back.
Please vote.